Saving a franchise, Talawas decide to stay in Jamaica. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Keneal Gale. Thanks so much for spending some of your weekend with us. After months of negotiation and threats to leave, owners of the Jamaica Talawas have struck a deal with the Jamaican government and members of the local private sector to keep the franchise in the island. More on that in a bit, but right now, let's get to some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. Education Minister Will Reid has resigned. Prime Minister Andrew Holness asked the minister for his resignation on Wednesday amid swirling allegations of corruption at the ministry under his supervision. More in this report. Prime Minister Andrew Holness spent a good part of his contribution to the budget debate talking about accountability and good governance. That seems to have been the theme he took into a meeting with Education, Youth and Information Minister Will Reid this morning to discuss corruption allegations at the ministry. Prime Minister Holness said in keeping with the principles of good governance, he requested and received Minister Reid's resignation.
Issues have been raised in the public domain which have caused me to have a conversation with the minister. After that conversation, it appeared to me that given, as the leader of the opposition has said, the sensitivity of the Ministry of Education, that the best thing to do would be for the minister to tender his resignation.
Minister Reid has also resigned from the Senate. Prime Minister Holness said Will Reid's resignation will ensure that any investigation into corruption allegations will not be in any way impeded by his presence or oversight of the ministry.
Our job now as the administration is to ensure that there is no impediment and there is no obstruction and that there is transparency. I believe that the action taken today by myself and the minister would strengthen the system of our democracy so that there is transparency.
The minister's forced resignation came only days after opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips called on the Auditor General to immediately investigate allegations of breaches and misuse of public funds involving the Ministry of Education and the Caribbean Maritime University CMU. Dr. Phillips said the opposition was aware of the issues of cronyism, nepotism and corruption at the CMU and how funds allocated from HEART NTA to the ministry for the Career Advancement Program and the TVET Rationalization Program are being utilized. The opposition leader also claimed that politically connected persons have been employed as advisors, but they have not been operational or doing any work while still collecting hefty salaries. Meanwhile, the Jamaica Teachers Association said it is shocked and surprised by Will Reid's resignation. The teachers' union, while arguing that the education sector is too important to be shrouded in alleged corruption and controversy, said it will continue to monitor the situation. In the meantime, the PMP Youth Organization is demanding that Will Reid steps down as principal of Jamaica College and not be allowed to serve on any state boards in the near future. The opposition party's youth arm argued that Will Reid's prolonged secondment was already improper and to keep him in this position of leadership sends the wrong message to the students who would be under his influence and guidance. They also want Will Reid's status as Justice of the Peace to be revoked. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information will now fall under the temporary supervision of the Office of the Prime Minister, which will start its own review of the ministry and its agencies.
Part of the role of the Office of the Prime Minister is to make sure that every ministry is being run properly. How I view my job is from the point of view of ensuring that the principles of good governance are institutionalized in every ministry. So once I see that there is a problem that signals a governance issue, a breakdown in supervision and oversight by the minister, then I have to intervene and ensure that those problems are not systemic or deep-rooted, and if they are, to correct them.
Meanwhile, in answering questions about Will Reid's forced resignation, Prime Minister Andrew Holness assured the public that the resignation will not negatively affect the primary exit profile PEP exams scheduled to begin in a few days.
Mr. Speaker, the considerations that are raised are valid considerations. I wish to assure the public that the Ministry of Education has a very strong bureaucracy. It has a very strong bureaucracy, not in the negative sense, but it has a very strong public administration culture. And therefore, the operations will continue unimpeded, and I'm expecting that the new exams, the PEP, will go off without any difficulty.
In the meantime, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, JCC, has commended the decision of Prime Minister Andrew Holness to request Rural Reid's resignation. The JCC says while they are not aware of the details of the allegations, it's good governance for the persons at the center of those allegations to step aside, even temporarily, without the shadow of their presence casting doubt on the investigative process. However, the JCC says they're concerned that in a matter of months, 2 cabinet ministers have had to step down. The Chamber says they look forward to quick and transparent updates on the process and the results of the pending investigation. There's no better time than now for Jamaica to move into full-fledged inflation targeting. That's according to the governor of Paraguay's central bank, who delivered the keynote address at the 22nd workshop in international economics and finance held at the BOJ in Kingston on Monday. Javon Keys was there.
The reform of the central bank and moving to full-fledged inflation targeting has been something up for much discussion for the last number of quarters. The governor of the Central Bank of Paraguay, Dr. Carlos Fernandez Valdebinos, says that now is the best time for Jamaica to move to full-fledged inflation targeting.
You need to take advantage. I'm not an expert on the Jamaican economy, but I saw several numbers. I read the report, the IMF report, and I'm impressed. And this is the right time, really, to start doing all the necessary reform. You can call it first generation, second generation, third generation, or whatever, but there is no better time for you to do the reforms than right now. That is peaceful. It's very bad to try to do the reform during a crisis, being that economic crisis, financial crisis, exchange rate crisis. This is the right time.
He adds that there are a number of mechanisms which can be used to attain price stability. However, most countries are moving to inflation targeting.
More countries are adopting an inflation targeted regime. And the important thing here is that you can see countries of different level of development. This is not something fancy for only developed countries. This is something that different countries with different initial conditions can use it as a framework for monetary policy. That's the reason why people consider inflation targeted regime is a flexible regime that could be adopted by different countries.
Dr. Valdebinos says although the conditions are ideal, not all requirements on paper will be met.
You have all the preconditions here to move forward with the IT regime. Do not wait to really have everything in place in order to start implementing. Talk with the Minister of Finance. It's important as the fiscal. Here you have the financial sector policy also on board, so it's going to give you also a strong base in order to implement the IT regime going forward. Now, again, and I want to finish with this. Not always all preconditions that you read in the literature to adopt an IT regime will be totally met.
Moving on now, when the next CPL season kicks off in a few months, the Jamaica Tallowers will be hunting a third title. This wasn't the case a few months ago, though, as there was still major uncertainty about whether the island would have a franchise. WBR caught up with the Jamaica Tallowers CEO Jefferson Miller, who explained how the franchise was saved. Over the past 6 seasons, the Jamaica Tallowers have brought electrifying T20 cricket to Sabina Park in Kingston. But late last year, word came that the owners of the team were contemplating removing the franchise from Jamaica because there wasn't enough government and/or private sector support. After months of discussions, negotiations, and back and forth, the owners have come to a decision.
I'm happy to announce that Jamaica will be staying. The Tallowers will be staying in Jamaica, and I think that's good news for the spectators of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica, and the CPL, because Jamaica is an integral part of the CPL. and not to have a team in Jamaica would have been a catastrophe. And the owners realized that, and we made an effort along with government and other corporate Jamaica to make sure that the Talibans remain here in Jamaica. We have full support of the government of Jamaica, and we're having some great support from corporate Jamaica. Those two combinations with our desire to stay in Jamaica have made it a reality that the Talibans will be in Jamaica.
Last season, most fans weren't pleased with the fact that only 2 of the Talibans' home games were played in Jamaica. The other 3 were played in Florida. While not revealing much details about where the games will be played in the 2019 season, the Jamaica Talibans CEO promised that the majority of games will be played at Sabina Park.
The thing is that the Talibans is remaining in Jamaica. The matches can be discussed at a later date. We're still talking to CPL pertaining to the schedule, but at least Jamaica will be here, and I can guarantee you the majority of all the games will be here in Jamaica.
After losing millions of US dollars over the past 2 seasons, the Talibans owners are hoping that the partnerships they've been able to forge with the Jamaican private sector will be enough to help them not lose as much money this season.
At least we have a partnership, a private partnership now with government and with corporate Jamaica, which we didn't have before. So that at least they're going to help some of the losses that we incurred in 2017 and 2018. So with that partnership that we have developed moving forward, there will be more revenue that will come in from having games in Jamaica.
He pointed out that CPL gives the island an economic boost each year.
Look at the economic part, look at the jobs, look at the hotels. You can speak to the hotels here in New Kingston and you can see the impact that the hotels, that CPL has on the hotels here. The amount of jobs that is created, the taxi drivers, the restaurants. So there's a huge economic impact that CPL brings here. Now, we played 2 games here last year. It was over $10 million in economic impact. 2016, it was over $15 million. So we do bring something to the economy. Secondly, that's US, everything here is US. Secondly, the model of the CPL is based around the tourist board involved with CPL, because CPL is shown in 101 countries. Over 200 million people are watching the games. That's, if you have to pay for that, you can understand how much it would be. So we do bring value to Jamaica.
He noted that the potential economic impact in 2019 will be even greater.
Having all the games here would be a tremendous impact for Jamaica, because instead of having 2 or 3 games, you have 5 games. Instead of having the players here for 3 or 4 days, you have the players here now for almost 10 days. So you look at the economic impact that the games will have again this year. And I think the government have seen that, and corporate Jamaica have seen that, and I think there's a combination of those 3 that will make a successful tournament this year.
Meanwhile, the Talibans CEO said the team's management has plans to further entrench the brand in Jamaica.
In my conversations with the Minister of Sports, we are talking about a 3 to 5 year plan, and not only to have the Talibans join CPL, but have the Talibans 365 days a year involved in Jamaica. And we're going to create a partnership, and that partnership will have us constantly participating in different events in Jamaica on a monthly basis, and not only join CPL. So you will see something like that is going to be announced very soon.
Company news comes up next, then later a showcase of some of the world's most expensive designer watches and jewelry pieces. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Scotiabank lowers interest rates, main event revenues up, and Inter Energy Holdings acquire Jamaica Private Power Company. Here's this week's company news.
Scotiabank has lowered its interest rates for mortgages and small businesses. The company says they now have the lowest rates in the market at 6.99% for residential mortgages and 9.99% for small business loans. Scotia says the small business loans will be funded by a special $3 billion fund. The company says the single-digit rate offers a strong opportunity for companies to expand their operations. President and CEO of Scotiabank Jamaica, David Noel, says the bank is positive about the economy economy and the future. He says the new rates are important to help drive the expansion of credit in the market. Main Event Group saw a 27% increase in revenue for the first quarter of its 2018-2019 financial year. The company also significantly increased its asset base during the period. Main Event revenues for the first quarter, which ended January 31, 2019, was almost $458 million. The company recorded a net profit of $31.6 million, a $1.3 million decrease compared to last year. Going forward, the company plans to complete the expansion of its M-Style arm, which is geared towards the wedding planning market. This Main Event says is in a bid to build a stronger market demand for their services. Inter Energy Holdings (IEH) has acquired the Jamaica private power company JPPC. IEH is the owner of the independent power generating giant Jamaica Energy Partners (JEP), while JPPC is a 60 megawatt power plant in Rockfort, Kingston. JPPC is also an independent power provider which uses slow-speed diesel generators to produce electricity for sale to the national grid. Following the closing of the $4 billion transaction this month, JEP assumes management of all JPPC's assets. The acquisition will expand the group's total generating capacity.
Let's now take a look at how the markets in Kingston, New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Beijing, and London ended the week. When we come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. The National Housing Trust, NHT, will be increasing its loan limit and reducing its interest rate for all contributors come April 1. The announcements were made by Prime Minister Andrew Holness during his budget presentation on Tuesday. More in this report.
Come April 1, all National Housing Trust NHT mortgages will be paying less. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the NHT has also revised its income band to account for the changes in earning levels. If you earn less than $15,000 weekly, then there will be no interest on your NHT loan.
Under the new system, if you earn $15,000 weekly, you pay 0%. So increasing the rate brings in more people. Previously, if you earn between $12,000 and $1 to $20,000 weekly, you would pay 2%. Now, if you earn $15,000 and $1 and $30,000, you pay 1%.
Mortgages earning over $20,000 weekly but less than $30,000 will now pay 3% interest on their loan, while those earning more than $30,000 but less than $42,000 weekly will pay 5%. The NHT will also revise its monthly payment in line with the adjusted income bands. Mortgages are expected to save between $3,500 and a little over $10,000 depending on the income band. Mortgages earning between $30,000 to $42,000 weekly will see the greatest benefit.
If you were earning $32,000 weekly and you had a $5.5 million mortgage, previously you would be paying 6% and you would have a mortgage of $38,144. Now, you will be paying 3%
your actual payment would be $27,868.
The Guardian Group will be investing some $4 billion in a new housing development in New Kingston to be called the Cambridge. Javon Keys was at Thursday's groundbreaking ceremony.
With the government making a number of recent announcements expected to make it easier for persons to own a home and make the real estate market as a whole much more competitive, the Guardian Group has answered the call with the latest in its real estate development projects, the Cambridge. President of the Guardian Group, Eric Hosin, says the new development will cost some $4 billion and provide more than 300 jobs.
Today, we are here breaking ground for another development, the Cambridge, which is almost 3 times the size of the Hampshire, and which offers all the amenities of the Hampshire and much, much more. On this 3 acres property here at Garden Life, we are investing some $4 billion, and we made a commitment to the Prime Minister that, and to the Member of Parliament that we are going to do more. That's just the start. This development will provide over 320 jobs over the next 2 years.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says his government's move to lower interest rates and increase the earning categories for NHT beneficiaries will in no way put the body at a disadvantage.
Many of your clients will have to rely on the NHT to afford these units. We considered very carefully in coming to our policy decision to reduce interest rates. We wanted to make sure that whatever we do, the NHT would not be negatively impacted. And we are certain that the policy decision that we recently made will not in any way negatively affect the NHT.
Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Floyd Green, says he's not pleased with the approval time for cannabis licensing applications. Minister Green met with the Cannabis Licensing Authority, CLA, last week. He says the approval time is impacted by a process of due diligence. He adds that investigations conducted by external agencies like the police pose a challenge to completing the process in a timely manner. The minister says some of the agencies have no direct team to follow up on the requests, which takes months.
The authority has to pass the application and the results process to the various entities for them to do due diligence reports that then feed back into the agency. So one of the things that I indicated to the authorities is that I would be engaging some of those external partners, the Constabulary Force, the Ministry of Finance, to see if all parties could agree upon a reasonable total time frame in which the applications should be processed. Because
Minister Green says the time frame for approval may take up to 9 months, which he says is unacceptable. He revealed that he will be meeting with the CLA and their external partners to come to a more reasonable time frame for cannabis licensing approval.
And it can vary from 6 months to 9 months. Again, I think I have an idea of what I believe is reasonable. Clearly,
and what is that?
Let me put it this way. I think after I speak to the SID, after I speak to the Constabulary Force, then I will communicate. But I'll just say I don't believe a business process of that nature should take us 9 months.
And when you come back, we go to Switzerland for the Basel World Fair. That's after the break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Since 1917, the Basel World Fair has showcased the latest luxury watches, high jewelry, loose diamonds and gems. This year's fair, now on the way with a glimmering selection at Basel, Switzerland, is no different. Take a look.
Every year, the world's biggest annual watch and jewellery fair, Basel World, takes place in Basel, Switzerland. Every year since 1917, it's showcased luxury watches, high jewellery, loose diamonds and gems. This year promises to be the beginning of a new era for the fair, with a new extension to the exhibition centre, designed by the Swiss architecture firm Herzog & de Meuron. We spoke to the new managing director, Michel Loris-Melikoff.
We took the achievements, the positive things of Basel World. Of course, we keep on working on those, but for me it was really important to begin this transformation. I think that in general all shows must be reinvented, in the sense that digitalization concerns us all. Everybody uses their smartphone to make purchases, to book a taxi, to do their banking transactions. And in the end, smartphones also revolutionize fairs and the exhibitions business.
Digital evolution and choices made by some brands have changed the rules of the game at Basel World, where there are more than 500 exhibitors who year after year try to reinvent themselves.
It's true that we've had a bit of a revolution in the past with the smartwatch, the connected watch. And it's true that today a watch is no longer important just to tell the time. Today we have to reinvent ourselves. The Swiss watchmakers, us, we are watchmaking art. What we create are artworks.
The biggest change to the exhibit will come in 2020, when the show will immediately follow in the footsteps of the iconic SIHH exhibit of Geneva by allowing press and retailers to attend both major trade events.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.